All right, this is Shawnee Flowers from Monsters and Critics here with Reality Steve, the Bachelor spoiler king. Everybody knows you. We love you. We follow your spoilers. And you've been right more than you've been wrong. So I have to give you props for that. My first question for you today is actually about the season spoilers that, well, you got wrong. First, I wanted to commend you because you absolutely took ownership of it, even though obviously it wasn't your mistake per se. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that all happened and, you know, how you figured it out?
Yeah, it's really weird, obviously, because I never see any spoiler I've given for the last 15 years is not firsthand. I don't witness anything with my own two eyes. So I'm only as good as what my sources tell me. And for the most part, as you said, you know, it's my track record speaks for itself. I've been right way more than I've been wrong. And for this particular situation, I'm trying to think, like, without going into detail, obviously I'm not going to give up any sources here, but there was just so much that I was given early on in terms of it being Daisy and the information I was giving, where it was coming from. It was almost like an avalanche of it is Daisy. And I was told it was Daisy. And then usually even when I get that, I'm like, okay, but what about the other two? Because at the time it was Rachel and Kelsey and Daisy in the final three. And I'm like, but what if someone else comes to me and says it's Kelsey, or someone says it's Rachel? I need to kind of know where it lies in terms of, well, who's more right. But I never got any of those. I never got any information telling me it was Kelsey. In fact, I got the opposite. And so the same with Rachel. I kind of knew it wasn't Rachel just by the way things were going all season. I kind of felt it wasn't her. And then I never got anything told to me post filming. And then so I sat, put it out there that it was Daisy all season long. I really did even feel like it was, like everything was adding up and making sense to me that it was Daisy. And then I started getting a couple rumblings, I want to say beginning of February, where it was like, you might want to look into this, you might want to look into that. The thing is, I get that every season. I mean, every time I've given a spoiler, whenever I did, whether it was before the season started or halfway through the season, I'm always told you're wrong. It's somebody else. And so every season I have to go through this. And it's just like, sometimes I'm just like, I'm sick of it. This is right. And it's not that I didn't look into what people were saying about it being Kelsey. When I looked into it, I didn't find anything. I didn't find anything concrete. I'm like, okay, I see what you're saying, but there's nothing concrete out there. And then the big thing happened where it was spoiled that Kelsey posted a TikTok from a happy couple weekend. And to me, that's about as concrete of a spoiler as you can get. If you find out who's at a happy couple weekend, either they spoil it themselves, either accidentally or on purpose or whatever, you pretty much have your winner, because there'd be no reason for Joey and Kelsey to be spending a happy couple weekend together if he's engaged with to Daisy. So once that picture came out and it was confirmed that that house was a happy couple and Joey was there and Kelsey was there, I knew the spoiler was wrong. My question then became, there's a 2% chance that maybe he did pick Daisy and had already changed his mind and now he's with Kelsey. I didn't really believe that to be the case, and it wasn't the case. So, I don't like being wrong, especially on something like this, and especially on a season where I literally had every date and elimination already laid out for everybody. It's the only thing I've been wrong on all season. So that part sucked. I really wish I could have gotten the whole season right. But it happens. There's nothing, it happens. I'm not holding the secrets to the nuclear football. This is a reality television show. I'd like to get it right. I'm right most of the time. This season I wasn't, and I can accept that. I'm fine with it. As much as I would like to have not gotten it wrong, I'm fine with it. And I'm glad that we had still a month left. Now, the thing that does suck for me and for the contestants is it must have been kind of hard for Daisy and Kelsey over these last 3 months, because if you looked on the social media platforms of each woman, anything that ABC posted it was, you read enough of the comments and everyone's like, oh, can't wait to see Daisy win the perfect couple or whatever, or anything Daisy posted. Can't wait to see you and Joey engaged and happy. I'm guessing that probably sucked for Kelsey. She probably wasn't too thrilled seeing that. She knows what the spoiler was out there. And for 3 months, she had to hear other people basically just glom on to Daisy. Now, is it all because of my spoiler? No, I think a percentage of it is. But to say that it was because of my spoiler, I don't think anyone can actually pinpoint a number of what percentage of the fan base started following Daisy because of the spoiler. Because the day of the first episode, she only had 20,000 followers on Instagram. Now she's over 400. And the spoiler was out since November. So clearly from November to January 22nd, nobody seemed to care that the spoiler was Daisy won. They didn't bother to follow her. So that's why I say, and she jumped after episode 2, which was her first one-on-one day. I think she just has a likability factor that a lot of people glommed onto. And she's she's got an underdog story. And people like rooting for underdogs. It's just the way we are in society. So I think that had more to do with it. My spoiler, probably a little bit, but more to do with her on screen and her story attracted a lot of viewers.
I think that you're probably right on both points. Also, I mean, something that kind of jumped out at me, and I've always wondered this, and I wanted to ask you really, do you feel like maybe that spoiler was planted intentionally? And I ask that because the way that this season was edited, it was edited so that Daisy is like front and center from, like you said, episode 2. And we're getting down to episode 8 now. And everybody's like, where did Kelsey come from? This is the first I've seen of her. So do you think maybe that was intentional?
No, and I can say that because of this. When I have gotten a wrong spoiler in the past, if it's intentional, obviously I go back to the people who fed me this information. And for the most part, they were just telling me what they believed to be true. And the same happened here with this particular situation. If I would have gone back to them and they would have ghosted me and they would have just been like, oh man, sorry, I don't know. Then I could probably tell it was planted. It wasn't. I've been speaking with numerous people regarding this that were, telling me it's Daisy, it's not Kelsey. And again, like I said, I'm only as good as what my sources tell me. And I know if I'm being misled because I'd be able to catch it in conversation and their stories would end up changing. And it's just not what happened this time. It was, they genuinely believed the information that they had was correct. So they passed it on to me. Could somebody who gave them that information lied to them on purpose? It's possible, but the person who told them wouldn't have any idea that it was going to be coming to me. So the short answer is no. There has been a season where I was misled, and that was the only season where I got it wrong the whole time, and that was Desiree's season, because when I went back to my sources that season, they ghosted me. I couldn't get a hold of them after the fact. So I was like, oh yeah, so clearly they planted one on me. But this one, no, I don't believe that was the case at all.
Okay, so another question for you, because not only are you the spoiler king, apparently you make some good predictions too. So I wanted to ask you about the Golden Bachelorette and your prediction that Leslie will be the Golden Bachelorette. I feel like you might be right. I've been kind of gunning for her all through the Golden Bachelor, especially after the way that it ended. Do you think that she's appearing next week on the show? Do you think that that's going to be kind of a clue?
I didn't even realize they were appearing on the show until I saw the previews at the end of last night's episode. So I think that only adds to it. She makes the most sense. Right. She lasted the longest. She finished second. People remember her the most. I know people clamor for other people. Susan, Faith,
Basically anyone but Kathy, right?
Yeah. I get it why people want maybe someone else. But Leslie seems like the choice that they're going to go with. And
she's got the star quality, kind of star power behind her too. So, it makes sense. Total sense.
She's got the storyline behind her. We know how this show loves to basically work off storylines. And, she has the best storyline behind her. And the fact that she lasted the longest and didn't get picked, she thought she was going to get picked. And then whatever,
right.
Gary
The
does a
redemption
180.
story, right?
That what?
The redemption story. Like she gets to redeem herself after she picked out her dress and she wrote her vows. And
Gary apparently did a 180 in the overnight. She has said in interviews post-show that she absolutely, Gary gave her every reason to believe he was going to pick her. And then all of a sudden it changed. Like, I totally get it. I really would be surprised if it's anybody but her. But it's a possibility. I mean, who knows? Maybe something fell through.
Throwing us off,
maybe something fell through in negotiations. Maybe she wants. We don't know. But I know that they want her, and I know that she's someone that they absolutely would sit down and interview. But I just don't see it with anybody else. She makes the most sense.
I mean, Faith already said it's not her. So unless she's throwing us off, who knows? Who knows at this point, right?
Yeah.
So keeping on the whole Bachelorette train, how possible do you think it is that Maria is our Bachelorette? Do you think it's Maria? Do you think it's Daisy? Have you given it much thought?
Yeah, I mean, my guess is it's Daisy. Like that's my guess. I have no information regarding that. I think it's definitely between the two of them. I don't think you're looking at Rachel as the Bachelorette or Lexi or whoever came in sixth. I forget already. Jen. I just don't think it's any of them, because once again, for those that don't know, we've had 20 seasons of The Bachelorette, but we've had 22 Bachelorettes because 2 seasons had 2 women, Gabby and Rachel's season, and then Claire and Tayshia's season. So we've had 22 Bachelorettes. All but 2 of them finished in the top 4 of their season. The only 2 that didn't were Katie Thurston and Hannah Brown. So we know it's probably coming from the top 4. Well, that leaves Daisy, Rachel, and Maria. And Rachel hasn't gotten any sort of edit to get anybody behind her this season to make you think that she could be Bachelorette. Maria has dominated screen time. She's got more screen time, twice as much screen time as any other woman on this season. It'll dwindle now that she's off the show and Daisy is still on the show. So, but at the time that she left, twice as much screen time as anybody else. I just think for me, and not for me as I want Daisy as the Bachelorette, because I don't care who gets the lead. As long as there is a season, that's really all I care about. I'm going to
keep us going, right?
Yeah, I'm going to treat the season the same way. If Daisy's the Bachelorette or Maria's the Bachelorette, my whole goal doesn't change, which is find out the spoilers to the season. But if you're asking me who I think it's going to be, my guess would be Daisy. And just because of everything we went over before, she is someone who's got the biggest following coming out of this season. She's got a story that no other lead has ever had. She is deaf, hard of hearing, never had any sort of lead with, and I don't even want to use the word disability because I don't even know if that's the right word, but you know what I mean. It's somebody, a lead that has basically something working against them physically. And she finishes second. Like the story is all right there. We're talking about storylines. She has the perfect storyline. Now you can say, for people that want Maria, what would be Maria's storyline going into next season? The only thing I could think of is she was dumped by Joey.
Yeah, and maybe like the bullying stuff, everybody against her, but
I feel like they didn't really focus on that much. And she said it one time in a conversation, but it hasn't been her character. And I understand that some people are put off by Daisy. I don't understand the hate coming towards her, but it's one thing to just be like, I'd prefer Maria over Daisy. I'm fine with that. But the things that I'm hearing as to why people don't like Daisy, I mean, the nerve of some people who are full of hearing to tell somebody to stop talking about her cochlear implant just seems so disturbing to me and so off-putting. Like, great. You have, this is something that this woman deals with every day of her life.
Right.
That she cannot hear like the rest of us. And you're telling her to stop talking about it? Like, anybody, I mean, it's part of her daily life. Anybody that she gets in a relationship with is going to have to deal with it. I'm floored by some of the responses. Like I said, you can like Maria over Daisy for Bachelorette. I'm fine with that. But people aren't just saying I prefer Maria. They are saying Daisy seems calculated. She's been out for the Bachelorette since the beginning. She won't stop talking about her cochlear implant. That stuff is...
It's a little bit wild considering that up until, you figured out who the real winner was, everybody loved Daisy and wanted her for Joey. So that was kind of a sharp U-turn, right?
Yeah. No, seriously. It's just like, how can you, somebody that has all your hearing, tell somebody how they should be, reacting about something that they have to deal with every day of their life. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't really understand why people are getting so mad at her. And the whole thing about being calculating and she's wanted to be the Bachelorette since the beginning. Look, every woman that goes on the show every season, you basically have a 1 in 30 chance of winning. I don't think any woman goes on the show saying, I know I'm going to be I know I'm going to win.
They say it, but who believes it? I mean, they say
you can think it, but I don't think anybody truly believes it.
Right.
And then, but they all know, hey, the longer I last on the show, the more followers I get, I can build a brand. So once it got down to Final Four, I'm sure it went through Daisy's mind and Rachel's mind and Maria's mind. Like, if I don't win, I have a chance at this. But I don't even think Daisy and Maria, I don't think either of them are doing anything on camera that's calculated so they can be the next Bachelorette. And that's what people are saying about Daisy. And I
tend to agree with that. Neither of them strike me as like clout chasing in that manner either. So.
And here's another thing I want to point out. This is another one that I keep hearing all the time is we don't know anything about Daisy other than she has a cochlear implant. That's all she talks about. Okay, if I were to ask the average fan out there, what does Kelsey do?
Right.
What do we know about Kelsey this season? Her mom died. She's talked about it twice. She talks about it a lot. I'm not saying that's a negative thing, but that's her story. That's her story. Everyone's got like this backstory or whatever. Daisy's is her hearing. We've heard Kelsey talk about her mother dying numerous times, which she's allowed to. But what I'm saying is, if you're saying Daisy only talks about her cochlear implant, what do we know about Kelsey? I don't even know if I'm sure I know what Kelsey does for a living. And you can take the same thing. I know Rachel's a nurse.
Right.
We take that same thing to Maria. Tell me one thing about Maria. What are Maria's goals, aspirations? What is her job?
Right.
I don't know anything about Maria. So all I'm saying is you can say Daisy only talks about her cochlear implant, but how about the other women that are in the top 4 that have lasted as long as they have? What can you tell me about Maria? I don't know anything about Maria. So it just goes to show and it's more the format of the show. They don't really get into, they'll always have they each have a backstory. Kelsey's mom died. Daisy has a cochlear implant, but they don't ever dive too much into other things. And I just don't know enough about Kelsey either to where it's like, oh, I know so much about Kelsey this season. Totally understand why he picked her. And all I know is Daisy has a cochlear implant. No, it's not that wide. If anything, it's even because they've both said the same thing a lot. So that's what I'm saying. Like, again, you can not like Daisy or prefer Maria over Daisy, but don't say she only talks about her cochlear implant because I don't even know what Maria's about. I don't know what her job is. Has she ever said what she does for a living? I don't know.
Yeah, I think in her bio, it says she's like a office manager or office.
Has she ever talked about that once? No.
I don't think never on the show.
That's what I mean. And even in the future, she's never talked about, I don't know, anything about what she wants. Like I said, goals, aspirations.
Well, it's taboo to say out loud that you want to be on further shows and build your.
Yeah.
They don't say it on the show, but we know, right? Yeah. Because 9 times out of 10, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
One thing that struck me this season way more than others, and I know they've been doing it, was exactly what you said, the backstory. I felt like every single one of them that got to tell their story had some crazy, tragic story. And it stuck out the most with Medina when she went on TikTok and was talking about how she didn't get to tell her story about her hospitalization. And it was just like, is that really the goal now? To just have some tragic thing to talk about? It's weird to me.
It seems like whoever gets one-on-ones does have a story. And I think maybe obviously the show knows everything about these contestants before they even get there. They know everything about you.
Right.
And so it is very possible that they are well aware who's going to make more interesting television. Now, they also know who the Bachelor is into after the first night, mostly into, and who their favorites are. And I'm guaranteeing that Medina was never on a list where Joey told producers she's someone I would like to get to know better. And that's nothing against Medina, just, different strokes for different folks. Right. She wasn't someone that he was totally into. So we're just not going to give her a one-on-one date. He kind of knew. I mean, once Daisy was announced as a contestant on this show, and we all knew back in September that this woman had a cochlear implant and had written a book for children about, it was just like, we knew she was going far. It was just, they weren't going to pass up this opportunity. All the more reason why I think that she's going to be Bachelorette. But it does seem like every single one-on-one, it almost would be like if we saw a one-on-one with a bachelor and some 24-year-old girl that had no tragedies in her backstory, in her past. And she's just like, yeah, graduated college. I work as an office assistant, and things have been great. Like, I think people would just be like, this Jade sucks. She's nothing. There's nothing. Where's the substance here?
Right.
And it wouldn't be anything against her, but I don't know if that makes compelling TV. And maybe that's the wrong way to approach it. But we have to remember first, this is a television show first, they're not looking to really create a match here. If they get one, great. But they're looking to create television that people are going to talk about, and nobody's going to talk the next day about the girl that got the one-on-one date who's had nothing in her backstory.
Right. It's all about viewers and advertising dollars. We all know this. And I feel like in terms of reality TV, Bachelor at least has been the one to keep it the most like above board, I guess is a way to say it. Like some of these other shows, and I don't want to say too much, but 90 Day, Married at First Sight, they've gone bonkers. So Bachelor, I mean, I'm not mad at them about the backstory, sob stories, but they got to make their money, right?
And it does seem that's compelling television more so than someone who hasn't had a lot happen to them in their life.
Right. Do you feel like Bachelor, like a lot of, and some of the ones I mentioned, they get really upset when we spoil it. Does Bachelor production care? Do they embrace you? Do they hate you? How are you received by the puppet masters, I guess?
It's a good question. Publicly, they don't acknowledge me. They can't, because they can't say, oh, he got us again.
Right.
They're never going to admit that. And they're not going to say, once I put a spoiler out there, he's wrong. Because then
to give it away, then you know what to look for. Right.
So publicly, they don't acknowledge me. Privately, I know that they don't care. I've spoken to enough contestants who obviously are in touch with production. Mm-hmm. I've spoken to enough contestants in the past where they have, my name's been brought up, and they're like, do we wish he wouldn't do it? Yeah, but what are we going to do? We can't stop it. We tape our television show in advance.
I feel like it makes it more exciting that way. Like I've actually had, I've had production from other shows contact me and beg me not to post the spoilers. Like not even my spoilers. I write about your spoilers all the time. Not even my spoilers, but just like, well, we won't work with you if you post these spoilers. I'm like, why would you not want me to drum up excitement for you? It makes no sense.
Yeah, I think from what I've been told, episode by episode spoilers, I don't think they care about too much. It's the ending. The ending they wish that's the one thing they wish I wouldn't do, because I'm basically ruining their whole season.
Ruin the show.
Every time I have spoiled it with the ending or what, it hasn't happened. I'm not affecting the show in a negative way. If I did, then you could be able to watch the ratings all season, and then when they get to the finale, it would just plummet because, we already know who won. Why would we tune in? If anything, the finale always goes up. That's why I get why they say it. It's more from a television perspective. Like, yeah, I wish you wouldn't spoil it. But for the main part, I'm giving them free advertising. That's what it is. That's why I don't think they really care all that much. And they never say anything about me publicly. And I get that they can't address me publicly because they don't want people who don't know about me tuning in and going to my website and finding out.
Who doesn't know about you?
There are a lot. I mean, it's a weird mix of fan base here, because there's the ones that follow along daily when the show is filming. But there are so many people that, once Joey's finale airs on March 25th, there are so many people that will literally shut off their brains until they see the next commercial for The Bachelorette. And they're thinking like, oh, let me go to that Reality Steve guy's site. Right. He's probably got information on what happened. Yet from March until May, when the next Bachelorette season is filming, anything I get happening in real time, I spoil it. And there are just a lot of people that don't follow that stuff and don't care to think. And then they're just like, I watch it for 2 hours on Monday night and then boom, shut off my brain. I don't go online. I don't read message boards. And I just watch for 2 hours every Monday night. And I don't follow along on what people are saying and all this.
That makes sense.
I think there's still people in this franchise that think this show is happening in real time. Like, I don't even think they get the concept that the next Bachelorette season is filming right when Joey's season is done airing, from March until May. And then it won't air until whenever they do the first episode. Usually it ended up being in end of June. Now it's being pushed to July usually. So we don't know yet the premiere date for Bachelorette. But yeah, and there's so many fans out there, believe it or not, that just don't follow any of this stuff and are just looking on Monday nights for 2 hours. And that's all they care about. So
that's just wild to me because, I go digging for spoilers. Obviously, you clearly, that's how you got into it, right? Like,
yeah.
How did you even end up being the spoiler king? Was this on purpose, on accident?
No, it was on accident. Yeah, I got my first spoiler in 2009 when somebody told me about the Jason and Melissa ending, which at the time had never happened in the history of the show. We had never had somebody choose somebody and then break up with them during a private taping and then ask the girl that he dumped to start dating him. And I found out about that. And that just happened to be just some, the wacky ending that it was. And then from that season forward, it just turned into, you're like the default authority on spoiling the show because you nailed what happened on Jason's season. You told us there was a private taping and that Jason had dumped Melissa and asked Molly to date him. And that's what played out. And then ever since that season, it just became, people started telling me stuff, and I didn't ask for that. Someone who knew that I wrote a column about the show is the one who came to me and said, "Hey, I got this info. I know you write about the show. I know you got a little bit of a following." And I had a very niche audience back then, but the second I gave a spoiler for this, it blew up.
It's amazing. An happy accident, right?
And here I am 15 years later, still doing it. Like, even after I got the Jason spoiler, I didn't know what to expect the next season, which was Jillian's season. And I think actually Jillian's season, I didn't get it right. Or I didn't even know. People were asking me, you knew Jason's ending, what happens with Jillian's? And I said, I don't know. The next season after that was Jake Pavelka. And then from that season on, spoilers pretty much every season. So yeah, it's crazy.
Amazing. Well, it's been great talking to you. I don't want to keep you any longer because, I know you've got people to talk to. It's been a pleasure though.
No, thank you. Thanks
honestly, this has been like one of the most enjoyable interviews I've done. I like chopping it up about Bachelor with you. This has been good. So
thank you.
Hopefully we can do that again. Maybe we can talk Bachelorette.
Yeah, anytime. Man. We get to the end of the Bachelorette season, we'll do it again.
Sounds good. All right. You have a good one. All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks.